the deal, y'all? It's your boy Dylan, and today we got our 4.63 valve that we're gonna build to make some power. We got a lot of parts behind us, so let's review the parts. Alright, so this is our 4.63 valve out of our 2010 Mustang GT. This is the aluminum block. We got the cylinder bores bored out to 10 over. And for the rotating assembly, we went with diamond pistons, flat top for higher compression. And we got Monar power adder rods. And for the crankshaft, we went with the stock crankshaft. Stock crankshaft is good for 900 horsepower, so that's the power level we're shooting for. And yes, in this video, we're gonna focus on assembling the heads and timing the motor. And yeah, we got a lot of parts behind us, so let's go over what we got. All right, going on the motor, we got brand new remachine heads. We got new lash adjusters, new roller followers, and new springs. To go with that, we got custom spec high lift cams. And we also went with some iron tensioners. This block usually comes with plastic. We went with iron for better longevity. We also went with some billet aluminum timing guides. This motor comes with plastic. They tend to break and ruin people's motors, so we just went with billet for extra protection. We also got some limiters for the phasers. Depending on how aggressive your cams is, you need limiters or lockouts. So moving on, we got some springs to go with our cams. We got all new billet aluminum oil pump gears. This is a good mod for any high horsepower applications. We got the OEM oil pump, can't go wrong with that. OEM water pump. We got all new 1000 cc injectors to get the proper feel into the motor. We went with an ATI super dampener. This is going to help with all engine harmonics and help the motor live and better for high horsepower RPM applications. We got the full ARP catalog throughout the motor, so we didn't cheap out on that. We got MMR backing plate, and we got our cool Alibaba blowout valve. To go with that, we got our Vortex supercharger, and we got our intercooler to go with everything and make some power. So yeah, only thing we waiting on is a couple gauges and a fuel system to arrive. So once that arrives, we'll get that installed. So moving on to our tooling table, we got all our tools needed, our diagrams, and cleaning supplies that's going to help assemble this motor the right way. So let's get to it. All right, so what we're gonna start off first is installing these billet oil pump gears. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the backing plate off the oil pump, lube these gears up, put them in, and yeah. All right, so there's 8 bolts that go into the backing plate, so you're just gonna remove those, and the backing plate should just come off like this. We're gonna remove the stock oil pump gears. Damn, this shit's stuck in here. All right, so right now we're just gonna lube up all the surfaces the oil pump gear is gonna touch. You never wanna put no assembly parts in, just dry, like, you feel me? You always gotta lube it up, you feel me? You can't be going in there dry. But yeah, we're gonna lube up the surface and then we're gonna lube up the gears themselves. Like so. Just rub it down just like that, you feel me? Get all in the inside. Just like you do your girl. All right, let me chill out. Let me chill. All right, so we got our oil pump gear sitting all nice and flush in the housing. We're just gonna throw our backing plate back on. And then we're gonna put a little bit of Loctite, not too much, a little bit of Loctite on each bolt. And then we're gonna run all 8 bolts down by drill, and then we're gonna torque it down to 89 inch-pounds. All right, so we got the oil pump fully assembled with the brand new oil pump gears. So now we just finna throw it on the motor. When you put it on the motor, make sure these grooves line up with the crankshaft. So yeah, we're gonna throw this on. Let's get to it. We got our oil pump all torqued down. Now we finna focus on installing our oil pickup tube as long as our windage tray. And then after that, we're gonna work our way to the top of the motor. All right, so if you guys are using the ARP main stud kit with the oil pickup pedestal, it reads out to 1.47. ARP instruction says to take it down to 70 thousandths of an inch. So we're just gonna shave it down, grind it down a little bit, little by little, until we hit that mark. So we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna start the oil pickup. All right, so now we got our pedestal grinded down to the right spec. Now we can continue on with our install. All right, so now we got our windage tray on. Now we're gonna install our MA bolts that ARP provides for us, and then we're gonna torque these down to 25 foot-pounds. All right, now we got that all torqued down. All right, so we got the oil pickup, the windage tray, and the pedestal all torqued down. We got our checklist right here. So we're gonna go ahead and check that off our checklist, and we're gonna continue on. All right, so before we do anything to the heads, we're gonna check to see if any of the valves are leaking. We don't wanna go ahead and assemble the heads and put the motor together and run it, and then we have problems down the road. So obviously if there's air coming through the valves, when it's not open or closing, then that's bad. So to do this, we're gonna need some water, some compressed air, and you're gonna need your finger. So what you're gonna do is, you're gonna put your finger over the spark plug hole, basically plug the hole, and then you're gonna take some water. We're gonna do this one. You're gonna take some water and pour it over the valves until the little pocket fills up. Boom. It's about to get loud once I use this compressed air, but all you're gonna do is blow the compressed air through the intake and then through the exhaust port. And then if there's no bubbles that come up through the valves, then that means it's sealed off and everything is good. If there's bubbles, that means you obviously have a leak and you need to get that fixed. So we're gonna do that to all these valves, and then we're gonna go from there. All right, so we just finished our leakage test on both heads, and they both checked out great. There was no leakage whatsoever. So that means we can move on to the next step. So we're gonna be installing these brand new Beehive valve springs. These are gonna go great with our new high lift cams. And to do this, you're gonna wanna purchase this new valve spring compressor. I know you can use the other two that they sell, but this one really helps out way better. You can get it on Amazon. I'll make sure I drop the link in the description, but yeah. So all you're gonna do is mount it to the cam towers, and then you're gonna drive this bolt down and put this piece on top of the valve spring, and then it's gonna compress it, and then the keepers is gonna slide out, and then just use a magnet to pull the keepers out, and everything should slide out, and then you can install the new valve spring. So we're gonna install all 24 valves. This is a really tedious job. I already did three. Three took me like an hour. So yeah, we just gonna keep the camera rolling and knock this out. Let's go. All right, so we got the springs installed, and man, it was a very boring, tedious job, but we got it done. We got the cylinder head all cleaned up, so we're gonna go ahead and throw the head gasket on, mount the cylinder head on the block, and then we got our lash adjusters soaking in some oil. We're gonna throw those in, and then we're gonna prep the heads, lube everything up, and get ready to install our cams. All right, so we got our cylinder heads all bolted down. We use ARP hardware to bolt the cylinder heads down. Usually they come with head bolts. These are head studs. So with the ARP hardware kit, you got to go in 3 sequences. The first is to 30 foot-pounds, the second is to 60 foot-pounds, and the last is to 85 foot-pounds. Now this is to secure that the heads are not going to lift and you don't have no head gasket problems. Now moving on, we installed the last adjusters. We got the cam journals all lubed up. So when we drop the cams in, everything rolls smoothly. So now we're gonna move on to installing our limiters into our phasers. All right, so before we install the cams, we're gonna go ahead and install these limiters into our cam phasers. Now these limiters is gonna limit the degrees that this cam phaser can rotate. Now there is either limiters or lockouts. I went with limiters so I could still utilize the engine VCT. Now using these limiters is going to allow us to run a more aggressive cam profile. Alright, so to install the limiters, we're going to go ahead and take off these 5 bolts on the backing plate. But when you're taking the backing plate off, make sure you keep this bolt in that lines up with this little stud. You want to keep that in because if not, the spring is going to unload and then you're going to have to rewind it. So we take out these 4 bolts and then leave this one in, and then you're going to slide the backing plate off a little bit. And then there's going to be a spring that's going to be ready to shoot out. So make sure you slide it back real slowly and be able to catch the spring. There you go. So as you can see, as I slid that backing plate off, this little spring right here wants to shoot out. So make sure you guys don't lose this. It's this little black piece and the little spring. Make sure you guys don't lose that piece because you're going to need it to assemble it back. So we're going to put that off to the side. Now you want to take your limiters. You're going to put the spring in the middle like this. Put the other one on top of it like a sandwich. All right, so now this is how it should look when you guys are assembling it. We got the spring in the middle and we got the little limiters sandwiched together. So now we're just going to drop it in one of these slots just like this. And boom, that's it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to slide our spring back into the hole that it came out of. Put the black piece on top. And now we're going to slide the backing plate back over. All right, so now we got our backing plate back over the spring. So now we're just going to put a little bit of Loctite on each of these bolts. All right, so once you got your studs on, there's going to be this one bolt that's longer than the other. So this stud, make sure you guys remember which way you're taking this out because it got to go back in the same hole because the little spring goes over this hole. So we're just going to put some Loctite on this one. Remember, bolt this one down last, the one with the longest stud. All right, so to slide the spring back over the stud, this would be easier if you had a vice grip, but I don't got one. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a screwdriver and we're going to pull this spring back. And then once the stud is, and once the stud is and once the stud is able to slide behind the spring, then you're going to go ahead and release the spring. So boom. So that's how it should look when you're done. So now that we got the limiters in, we got everything bolted down. Now we're going to torque these bolts down to 145 inch-pounds. So yeah, we got everything torqued down and we already did the other phasers. So now the phasers is good to go. So we're going to get that ready to install on the cam. All right, so now we finally ready to install our cams, man. I've been waiting for this for the longest. So we got our high lift cams. I hope they're aggressive enough, so we're going to find out later how they sound. But when installing the cams, there's a specific orientation that they got to go in. You could tell which side is for which by looking at the snouts of the cams. One side is longer than the other. So if we was sitting in the driver's seat of the car, the left-hand side is going to be the driver's side, and the right-hand side is going to be the passenger side. You know, pretty simple. So the longer snout goes in the left-hand side of the motor, and the shorter snout goes into the right hand of the motor. So we're going to go ahead and lube up the journals install the cams, install our phasers, and then yeah, we're gonna move on to timing the motor after that. All right, so now we're gonna turn the motor over. So we're gonna do one at a time. I'll turn the motor on this side, like that, boom. Then we're gonna grab our cam. Actually, let's lube up the bearing surfaces one more time. You can never have too much, but you can have too little. Like that, boom, boom, boom. All right. Lube our cams up. Oh yeah, I like this. And we're gonna drop it in. Boom, just like that. Yes, sir. All right, just like that. Everything looks like it's lining up all right. So now I'm gonna take some more assembly lube, run it over the top. Then we're gonna take our cam caps. We're gonna slap them on and just run them down, just hand tight. Remember, these gotta go back on the same way, the same exact one they came off, they gotta go back in. So don't mix that up, because if you do, you may break one, and then that's gonna be all bad. All right, so now we got our diagrams. Man, we came prepared. So look, we got our torque sequence. We're going to go from 1 through 10 to make sure we got even pressure going down on the cam. You want to make sure you got even pressure going down because you don't want to do it uneven. That could potentially break the cam, and we don't want to do that. All right, so now we got all 10 bolts hand tight down. So now we're just going to go back through 1 through 10, and we're going to torque the cam caps to 89 inch-pounds. All right, so now we got all 10 bolts torqued down to 89 inch-pounds. Make sure you guys don't go over 89 inch-pounds because you will crack the cam caps, and then you don't want to do that. So we got this one done, so we're going to move on to the next side. All right, you guys, so we're coming down to the last bits of assembling this motor. So right now we're going to set the motor up to be able to get ready to time it. So what you want to do is you want to put the motor at top dead center. Now when we assembled the cams, we took all the followers out. You don't want none of the followers in when you're timing the motor because you don't want to accidentally have the cam pushing down on a valve, and then you know you have your motor not at top dead center and you end up having piston to valve contact. So that's what we don't want. So we took the followers out. We're going to install those last. So what we're going to do is make sure the motor is at top dead center. So to do this, we got this special tool off Amazon. It was like 20 bucks, so you could get that. I'll have the link in the description. So what you're going to do is you're going to align it with the keyway right here. Now, if the keyway lines up with this dowel pin, that means it's at top dead center. And how you can verify this again is by putting on the crankshaft keyway. So you're going to slide it onto the keyway, and the little dot at the bottom should be pointing all the way down to the ground at 6 o'clock. So once you have it set at 6 o'clock, that's how you know that your motor is at top dead center. All right, so now that we got the motor at top dead center, we're going to go ahead and install the phasers onto the camshafts. Now, each phaser is an L and an R. Now, make sure when you're installing these phasers, the L is on the driver's side and the R is on the passenger side. Also, on the back of the phaser, there's a little pin, and that pin should line up with the little hole on the camshaft, so just make sure that lines up correctly. I also got this tool off Amazon. The link will be in the description. This tool, it helps hold the phaser in place, so when we're torquing it to spec, the camshaft doesn't move. So now we're going to go ahead and install the phaser. We're going to torque it to 30 foot-pounds with an additional 90 degrees. All right, y'all. So we got the rest of our timing kit right here. We got some plastic timing guides. We got some billet aluminum timing guides. We got our timing chains and then our tensioners. So real quick, what we're going to focus on now is modifying our iron tensioners. Like I said, these 4.6 aluminum blocks out of the 3 valves, they come with plastic tensioners. We're going to upgrade to iron. So when you upgrade to iron, the modification you got to do is you got to pull this pin, take out the ratcheting mechanism, and then you got to grind down the first 4 teeth. So I already did one. I'm going to move that one out the way, but I haven't did this one. So I'm going to demonstrate to you guys on how to modify this iron tensioner. All right, so to modify this tensioner, the first thing you're going to do, you're going to pull this little pin right here. So just pull that, boom. And then the tensioner should pop out like this. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna grab a pick. There's little like teeth in here. just push the pick in there and push it down, and then the ratcheting mechanism should slide out. Push this in, and then boom, it just slides right out. You pull the plunger out, and then boom, there you go. So y'all want to grind down those first 4 teeth. Don't do no more than that, just those 4. So we got the 4 teeth grinded down, so now we're gonna go ahead and reinstall everything into our tensioner. So now what we're gonna do first is we're gonna put our ratchet mechanism back in the little, I guess you could say, holster or whatever. So how we're gonna do this, we're gonna push the little tab down. Let me do it like this. And then we're gonna slide that back in there. Then we're gonna twist this to the side, like that. We're gonna put the plunger back in. Then we're gonna twist the tensioner back. Not the tensioner, but the ratchet mechanism. So it should look something like this. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna push this tab right here in this little hole all the way back, and then we're gonna slide the ratcheting mechanism all the way back till we can't go no more. Then after that, we're gonna put this pin in so it'll hold everything together back like stop. All right, y'all, so we got the tensioner all assembled. It should look just like this. So we got both of them modified, and so now we're gonna go ahead and throw all the timing assembly on and time the motor. All right, y'all, so now we're about to time the motor. So the first thing you wanna make sure is that the motor is at top dead center. We already got the roller followers out. You do not wanna time the motor with the followers in. I mean, you can, but I recommend that you don't. So we already used the tool. We got the motor at top dead center, like I said. So now the first thing we're gonna do is install our timing guides. All right, so now you want to torque those 2 bolts to 89 inch-pounds. All right, so now we can move on to putting the chains on the motor. I printed out this timing diagram that's going to help me line up the marks and make sure everything is correct. So for the driver's side phaser, you want to make sure it's pointing straight up and down. Well, not straight down, but straight up. So for the passenger side, I have that phaser around like at 11 o'clock position. So now with the timing chains, there's going to be blue links on each side of the chain. And you want to line those up with the L and the small dot at the bottom of the crankshaft. All right, so now we got our timing chain on for the driver's side. As you can see, the blue line, the blue mark on the chain lines up with the L, and then the blue mark on the other side of the chain lines up with the dot. That's at 6 o'clock position, so we know we good there. So right now we're gonna put on our billet aluminum tensioners and ruining our motor. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and slide on our timing guide like that, pivot pin timing guide. I ain't gonna lie, that shit look good, yup. And now we're gonna go ahead and bolt down our tensioner. And now we're gonna grab our torque wrench and torque these bolts to 18 foot-pounds. And that's it. All right, so we got the motor timed, everything torqued down and ready to go, man. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in the video, but we did upgrade to billet aluminum timing guides, but for the pivot side, usually some brands, they sell billet for both sides, but it's really the pivot side that you really want to worry about. So that's what we ran with. We left the stock straight guides that don't move. We left those plastic, and then for the pivot ones, we went with billet. So yeah. And now it's time for the best part, and that's pulling the pins on the tensioners and putting tension on the timing component. All right, y'all, so in the last couple clips, y'all seen that I was timing the motor. I had got carried away and forgot to film a couple parts. But real quick, before we go over anything, I just want to let y'all know we got the engine done, man. Look at it. That thing is pretty. But yeah, we got the roller followers in. I didn't end up filming it. Like I said, I got too carried away. But basically, I was using this valve spring tool. This valve spring tool, basically, you know, you put it on the valve spring and it helps you compress the tool so you can slide the followers in. And for some reason, it wasn't working for me, so I tossed that. I didn't use it. So to get them in, all I did was unbolt the cam caps, took the cam caps off, lifted the cam up a little bit, and I just slid the roller followers in like that, and it worked out great. Bolted everything down, and it's torqued to spec. But yeah, we got the timing chains done, the tensioners on, we got everything assembled. And real quick, the only thing that I was concerned about was there was slack right here. So when I turn the engine, this chain gets slack. But I'm not no engine expert. This is my first time, putting my hands on this engine. So, everything is new to me too. But I talked to a lot of people who was familiar with building this engine, and they said this is normal because the tensioners is driven by oil pressure. So once we get the engine all primed up and get oil to everything that needs to be oiled, everything will tighten back up and be all right. All right, so yeah, man, we got the engine all assembled, man. I'm excited. We got a lot of parts to install. We got headers. We just got the fuel system in, but that's a whole nother video. So just make sure y'all stay tuned. And like I said, I'm really excited to get this engine started and running. This is my first time, so hopefully we don't blow this up. But yeah, Hellcat Hunter coming soon. Make sure y'all stay tuned. Yo.